Kyle Steed is a self-taught artist, a storyteller, and a seeker of meaning. Based in Texas, his work, whether sprawling murals, canvas paintings, or intimate sketches, carries a distinct and unifying voice, exploring the delicate balance between order and disorder. A creative soul in every sense, Kyle is known for his expressive hand-drawn illustrations, lettering, and typefaces. But beyond his art, he is a father, a former Air Force serviceman, and a deeply introspective thinker who brings a sense of wonder and authenticity to everything he creates. His journey is one of continual exploration, and we are all fortunate to witness it unfold. Please enjoy my time with my new friend Kyle. Hey y'all, let's go there.
Good morning.
Yeah. Good Sunday morning, Kyle.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. It's a pleasure and a joy to have you.
Yeah.
Not just in our home this weekend, but as a friend.
Same. Thank you. Yeah, it's been so nice. The hospitality is just so inviting and warm. Like, feel loved and cared for. Yeah. And it's something about this changing of the season too. I think there's that hope of it getting warmer.
Mm-hmm.
And just like, but then we wake up and it's 32 degrees. It feels like it's
Yeah.
32 outside. So, it's Texas. It's always keeping you on your toes. But
yeah, totally. But we did have the most gorgeous day and fun yesterday. Well, I want to give everyone the context of how we know one another.
Great.
I've been following your work for quite some time. A friend of mine that's an interior designer, we haven't even talked about this.
Oh.
A friend of mine that's an interior
Let's talk about
designer,
it.
Laura Singleton,
Okay.
hired you to do some work for a hotel that her husband was developing here in Austin.
The canopy.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. And so she was like, she toured us and I was like, what is this? And she was like, this is Kyle Steed. And she was like, and he's the nicest guy. And I began to follow you, but I had seen your work before, having been from Dallas. And I know that I've seen your work before. I think my high school best friend had already sent me some stuff.
Okay.
But I started to follow you in earnest at that point and really started to covet a piece. And this was before I could afford you. I think I had to sell a house to afford you. But then I reached out to you and I don't know, you were just so kind. I had a super visceral response to your work in particular right now.
Yeah.
And had trouble deciding between two pieces, which funny enough, we discovered some friends of ours bought the piece that we didn't pick yesterday.
Yeah, it just happened yesterday.
Yeah, which is really weird that you and I were together when
Yeah.
you got that news. And the friend of ours and I had never discussed it, or you, which is really also
I
really
love
wild.
it. Yeah.
So it's all
I
connected,
love
Kyle.
it really is. It's such a small world.
Yeah, so that's how we got to know one another through that. And then you hand delivered the piece all the way from Dallas, which I was very moved by. And we spent the day together having it hung and having lunch and getting to know one another.
Yeah, it was, I felt from the moment, you reached out, your sincerity, just not knowing you, but feeling who you are as a person. And like, I'm always honored when someone gives that amount of trust and belief and support without question. And that means the world to me. And that also like encourages me to keep going. I feel it. I have a certain amount of knowingness in myself and what I do, but it's not always easy. Like I walk around constantly day to day with doubt, with, is this working? I think it's just as a very human thing to feel and to do, but maybe even more so as an artist to want to create a life and create my own path and create a world that I see. And it's a very vulnerable thing to do. And at times doesn't always feel so well received in the past or well supported or well loved or even understood.
Yeah.
And so I was laying in bed last night talking to Connell about that. And, but it's just the confidence I have in my work and of myself. Like I've cultivated that, but it's also an amazing gift to to be alive now and to be able to contribute some sort of beauty back to the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm to full circle that, right? Like, it's an honor for me when I meet someone like yourself and to make a friend and to make a new collector. But when I offer it means the world that I want to come down. Like, I want to put the piece in your home. And because I know how much it means to you, and I always want to show how much giving back that same, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I totally felt it.
Mm.
And then, having had the opportunity to just spend so much time with you that day and get to know you as a person, I was like, okay, you've got to come on the podcast.
Yeah.
And I think you kind of looked at me sideways, and then a few days later, you were like, okay, I'm ready. I got stuff to say. Got stuff to say. So I was like, okay, let's do this.
Yeah.
You just said something that made me wonder something about you, but also about being an artist that has never occurred to me, which is it lonely at times, Kyle?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
What do you do during those times? I mean, because I imagine, I mean, you're on your own. It's not like you have a team. I know there are artists that have teams. We hung out with one yesterday.
Yeah.
But
well, it gives me an emotional response because it's not really maybe sexy to talk about, or it's not advertised as such, but I feel it's a prerequisite. It is a requirement to be comfortable in your aloneness, to make friends with being alone. And it's not being lonely. There's a big difference between feeling lonely and being alone. I always love, for warts and all, the Dr. Seuss book, The Places You'll Go.
We talk about this book all the time. We talked about it this week as a family.
It's so, I mean, the life lessons, just pick a page. But the part near the end, I feel it is that he's, being alone is the thing you'll be, I'm going to mess it up, but basically saying this is what you're going to find yourself to be a lot of the time is alone. Mm-hmm. And me growing up feeling that way, I had this shift happen probably within this last year, that I always saw myself as an outsider looking in. And I think what's beginning to shift in me now is that I'm part of the whole experience. There's no way that I'm an outsider looking in. Mm-hmm. And that feeling is almost like a pity party in the past for me, to make myself excluded, to not feel inclusive. But the bigger picture is that I'm included in the whole damn thing.
Yeah.
And I think really looking at that and examining that's taken many years and a long time. But yeah, I think being alone is something you have to be willing to embrace. Otherwise, I found when I try and work around others, like, I don't make my best work. It always kind of ends up being a little more performative. Now, commercial, like mural work, you were just mentioning through the Canopy project, that is a very public facing side of what I do. And I can wrap my head around that in a different way. That's like, I know people might be watching me. And I know once this is done, there's going to be a lot of eyes on it, that's fine. But it is a different process than putting myself in my studio. And it's me against me almost.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So that solicited an emotional response. Do you mind me asking, what was the emotion about specifically when I brought up
being alone?
What was the feeling? Or what made you emotional?
It's a tender spot. It's, I think there's some sadness there mixed with pride and happiness that I'm able to talk about it and embrace it and welcome it even.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think we're so easily distracted now. I find this for myself to be true. And trying to get away from the criticism of it and just noticing it about myself. Because I think that's what makes a great artist, is someone who can observe. I think that's what makes a better human, is someone who can listen and observe.
Agreed.
And I think that's all my job is to listen to observe, and then I have the amazing opportunity to respond with color and shape and form. That's my outpouring, and it looks different for everyone, but it also it hasn't come without its own trepidations and fears and failures and successes even.
Yeah.
But the last piece that I just took off the wall, in the middle of painting it, I'll share this, elicited a similar emotional response, and I just found myself crying just working on it, and I stepped back from it and I saw it, and I can't explain it. I don't really understand why, but something in the piece just really like shook me
It broke you open.
a little bit.
What was
And
the
then not
piece?
like breaking me open, but I was just like finding myself in the center of it, of creating it, and just like, holy shit, when something feels other, when something feels like outside of you, but you're still involved in it.
Oh, wow. What piece was it? I'm just curious. Which one was it?
It actually wasn't in the show. It has since sold with the gallery. It's so funny because now I've run through all the titles of my work,
and now I've noticed this about you. You don't attach to the title.
I don't. It's such a hard. It's a weird conundrum to have, to not. Yeah, I don't attach to the title, so I can't. I'm blanking on it, but it's the most recent, like for now, as of this day.
Yeah.
The piece that I've posted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do think it's so fascinating. I actually feel the emotion in your work. And I think when I was in your studio with Connell, I actually said something like, these feel there's like a somatic quality to these. In particular, your recent work.
Yes.
And you were walking me through, and I hope you don't mind me sharing this. You were walking me through your house and showing me all of these pieces. And we got to a series of pieces that were super tight. And you were like, this was a period in my life where I was feeling very controlled by a relationship. And I was like, ooh,
yeah,
you could totally see it. It was like super tight. Yeah. And all of your work is beautiful, but it's just super fascinating to see your emotional state.
Yeah. And I think every piece records that a little bit more, I've considered that notion that all work, any artist making work, is just a record of their lives. And whether or not they're doing, like representational work, abstract work, landscape work, it doesn't matter. They're embedding themselves in the work.
Yeah.
And it's gonna over the course of their life, I think that becomes really clear.
Yeah.
But you're right. Like there are clear eras of my life, seasons of my life, if you will, that are very visible. Now you may not, if I hadn't walked you through and laid it out, you may not pick that up, but you could see the difference between, I do remember this title, Cold Shower Therapy, which is a personal favorite. I think that'll always stay in my possession.
Yeah.
Because that was such a pivotal moment for me, versus those other works that were so tight and buttoned up and almost had that much more controlled aspect to them.
Yeah.
And you look at those two and you're like, how within a span of a year?
Yeah. Yeah. You could totally see in Cold Shower Therapy how you're starting to break out of that. The emotion is starting to show up. Yeah. It's really wild.
And that happened in the midst of my separation. I was married for over 17 years. And when that all began to fall apart and dismantle itself, essentially, which was it took the time it needed to take. But in the beginning of that, I made a series of work that was shown in the summer of 23. And really proud of that work because it was very cathartic. I needed that. I needed to create during that moment of time. And I ended up choosing to, I was about 6 months sober during that time.
Oh, we haven't talked about this.
We haven't. Yeah. I even funny, before my marriage all kind of fell apart, it was the January of 23. I was like, I'm going to stop drinking. I just had a couple nights that I hated the way I felt the next day. I'm like, why? I just was asking myself, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
And I told myself a year. I lasted 6 months. Yeah. Honestly, till like my birthday. Yeah. It was. It's the longest, I think, stint that I've had to
Yeah.
date. But I think that's necessary. I think it's so good to give ourselves limitations and to self-impose limitations and restraint, because we live in a world that offers it all every day at any time.
It's so interesting to hear you say this. I have given up drinking right now,
Mm.
and I'm reluctant to say it out loud because I don't know if it's a permanent thing.
Mhm.
And I don't know if it's for similar reasons, but I was going through a hard period, and I was like, I need to feel this.
Mhm.
I don't want to numb it.
That is exactly the response I had in my body. I think my body knew it was coming,
Yeah,
even for a longer time than a few months. But
yeah.
yeah, I want clear mind. I
Mhm.
want clear vision. I want clear feeling. I want to feel the depth of this. And holy shit, did it hurt?
Ugh.
I mean, that's a whole life.
Yeah,
And we have two amazing girls. And it's an amazing thing to be able to talk about it without completely melting in front of you right now, because I
Mhm.
spent that time and went through it.
yeah,
And I think that is the key to any of this in life, is we have to be willing to go through it. There's no above, below, around. You can,
yeah,
and it's so easy, I think, and accessible to numb out and to do that. And so I commend you for whatever reasons you're choosing to feel this weight right now, because I know it, and it was a powerful thing to go through it of sober mind. And yeah.
totally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have a friend that says the only way out is through.
Yeah, it's so true.
Exactly what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
I also think what I've observed, and tell me if I'm overly romanticizing this, but it seems like you and your ex-wife are on the other side of this in a really healthy way. It sounds like you found your the other side.
I think so. Yeah, it's very. I would describe it as very amicable.
Uh-huh.
At times friendly, even.
Yeah.
And we're able to. We both come from broken homes.
Mm-hmm.
I'll speak just from my side, but I watched my parents, and their divorce was ugly,
Mm-hmm.
and being caught in the middle of it, being just tossed back and forth, not so physically, but emotionally,
Yeah.
was such a toll. I was so young. I was only 5. But I just know that feeling, and I went into my marriage. I was 23 when I got married
Mm-hmm.
for the first time.
So young.
Yeah, baby.
Mm-hmm.
And she was 21. I mean,
Yeah, your
you
frontal
think
lobe wasn't formed.
no, and it's so funny because we thought we knew.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know what you don't know.
Maybe you did know, by the way, because you created 2 beautiful children.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily a failure. Let's be clear.
No, but I mean, at the time with getting married,
Yeah.
thinking we had it all figured out.
Yeah.
But you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would do that all again with our 2 beautiful girls. Yeah, absolutely. They're such a gift.
Yeah. Well, this is where I want to go next. And you actually are starting to take us there, which is I kind of want to know how you became Kyle. I don't think that you can. The thing that's interesting about you is
How am I not myself?
how that was what I was going to say.
That's from the movie.
Oh,
I Heart
it is?
Huckabees.
Okay,
I can't wait for you to watch it.
Okay, we need to watch this. Side note, Kyle gave me a homework assignment to watch I Heart Huckabees because he says I'm going to love it. And just hearing him describe it, I know I'm going to. But yeah, I was just about to say, I don't think you can not be yourself. Like you are one of the most authentic people I've ever met. And you are a true artist. I can't picture you as anything or anyone else. And one of the things you said to me when we were at lunch that first time is you said you knew from the time that you were 6.
5.
5.
Yeah.
That you were going to be an artist.
It's
Say
funny,
more
my
about
mom,
that.
well, sometimes you live in memories, or you live through photographs of your childhood.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you don't have a clear vision of it, but you can see yourself in that moment, and you're like, yeah, I kind of feel that. My mom had sent me all these old, when we used to keep photos and albums, and she had kept all these like papers from when I was in elementary school, and it was literally me and my 5-year-old little scrawl on a piece of paper. The prompts were questions, what's your favorite color? What's your favorite food? What do you want to be when you grow up? And there I am at 5 years old writing artist. One word, that was it. Had no other ambitions in life. And now, fast forward almost 40 years later, I'll be 43 in June. It's like living a dream. It's almost what it feels like. Is what it feels like.
That's wild.
But as you know, and I'm sure most of everyone else who listens and has experienced, life is never a straight line, point A to B. I mean, it is filled with roadblocks, and it's just this wild scribble,
It's so true. I
But
love
it's
envisioning it as a wild scribble.
It is. Unexpectedly so. I go back to you. I think we've talked about this. So my time I spent in the Air Force was for 4 years, and I lived overseas in Japan for 3 of those years. And that was a total left field. Did not see that coming in my life up until the moment when I'm sitting in the office signing my life away for the next 4 years. And I'm like, what am I doing? But I had this trust. To go one level deeper in that story, at that time, my beliefs, my spiritual beliefs, were in a God that kind of ordained everything.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm still a spiritual person, and I believe in love and higher power and things happening outside of our control. But I had a more like linear view of God, a more, I don't want to say small view, but I think in the bigger context, yeah, kind of just an out of the box.
Yeah.
This is what I was given. I never really explored it much,
You
but
kind of accepted it.
But I had like this blind faith, quote unquote.
Yeah.
That was me at 21 when I signed, and I went to the Air Force, and it served me well in that time. I can't shit on it. Like, I have to say that my prayer life, like reading the Bible at that time, like all of that was really meaningful to me.
Mm-hmm. Now,
Fast forward into my mid 30s when all of that is dismantling and I'm breaking that apart, and I'm so angry, and I'm like, fuck you. Like, I just, you got it wrong. Screaming at the heavens.
Yeah.
And I had to spend that time to go through to like break all of that apart to see what would remain and what would hold true.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm jumping around.
That's
but
okay.
The point being is that while I didn't see that coming and I didn't know really why, I just had this like inner sort of trust and peace that I need to follow this. I need to see this through.
Yeah. And I don't want to speak for you, Kyle, but having gotten to know you, I think what you're also saying is not only did you trust yourself and your inner voice, but that is kind of your connection to something larger than yourself. The belief in that, the belief in following that, and that you're going to be taken care of.
That's right.
So I want to talk about how this little boy who's 5 and knows he's going to be an artist gets to the point where he's signing the next 4 years of his life away to go into the Air Force. That does not compute. How did you get from that to that?
Those years, sure.
And what made you decide to go to the Air Force?
I'd say my brother was my biggest influence, just by nature of him already kind of serving time a little bit, being in, having a few conversations with him, and my dad giving me an ultimatum, really. Like, I had all this ambition, this desire, this like willingness to, maybe not willingness, but like the desire to do something creative. When I first moved to Texas after high school, I would literally open the yellow pages, scan or find like graphic design companies, and just cold call people just call them up.
That's amazing.
I had no idea what I was going to say. I was so nervous, and I would just say, hi, like, I'm Kyle. Everyone would be different. Every time I called, I would learn something. I would figure out a better way to say it, but I was essentially just asking, can I come in and be like an intern? This is what I want to do. And a few companies were welcoming enough, and
off a cold call?
Yeah. And they would let me come in, and if nothing more, it would just be like a chance to meet them and see their office. But that's where I was at. Like, so I guess I can't say I didn't have any ambition.
Yeah.
But I really didn't know how to turn that next page.
Well, side note, I just want to call this out. You're not the only person that I've heard that has done something like this. And I
Oh,
just want to call it out for the audience
okay.
because if it's in you, do it.
Yeah.
But I have a friend who decided that she wanted to be a chef for
Mm,
movies.
mm.
And she was watching a movie and she saw the link for the caterer at the end of the
Oh
movie.
my
And
God,
she
yes.
faxed her resume in and got the job and now is like a chef for bands
I
and all
love
this.
it.
Yeah. So
I
anyway,
love it.
side note that if you get the urge, cold call, do the thing. But so okay, so you actually started to work inside of some of these graphic design
I
firms
did.
that said yes.
Yeah. I ended up getting a paid internship one summer when I was 20, 21. No, I'm 20, 19 or 20.
Mm-hmm.
It was a pharmaceutical company in Fort Worth, and they had an in-house design team. I worked underneath their creative director, Charlotte Hicks.
Mm-hmm.
Still in my memory, she was an amazing woman. Really took me under her wing. I designed logos. I literally just like hand drew
Wow.
little logos for their like internal corporate like conferences. It was all serving the company, it wasn't
Yeah.
anything sexy, but
Yeah.
she took me on printing press tours. I remember there was one web designer on the team, and I was like, "What do you do?" This was 2000, 2001.
Yeah. Oh gosh, right before the .com. But yeah, everything was blowing up.
Yes. Yeah. And it freaked me out. I was like, I don't know what you're doing over there, but I'm going to stay in my little cube and
And draw.
I
Amazing.
think I have somewhere on an old CD-ROM or in a folder somewhere like those sketches of icons and logos at that time. But that really spoke to me. And she obviously left a lasting imprint in my life and just being very supportive. I walked into that interview for that internship with a huge zip portfolio of work I had made probably my senior year in high school. And it was like pastel drawings, just from my art class. I was like, here I am. And they saw it and they saw potential and they took that chance with me. Now, how did I go from that to military is an even crazier question because I just didn't have like this, I don't know what to call it, but I didn't feel like I could manage so much in my life at that time. I felt like I either had to choose, okay, if I'm going to go to school, I need to put all my effort there. Like I didn't know how I could do that and simultaneously, like, because they offered me to stay on with that internship. And I was like, I don't know. I don't think I can do that. And ended up 2 years later, like, I'm not really going to school. I'm working these like low level consumer, like I was working at the UPS store.
Yeah.
Not doing really much of anything.
Yeah.
Hanging out with my friends. That was kind of it.
And that's when the ultimatum came from your dad?
Mm-hmm. And he was like, look, you are not really applying yourself. You're not contributing. You are barely working part-time, maybe full-time a little bit. But he's like, you're not going to just continue to sit and, it's like I'd put it in neutral or something. If I'm in the driver's seat, it's like I was just coasting. And I kind of knew it. My dad definitely knew it. And so with that ultimatum, it kind of lit that fire for me. And he was like, talk to your brother, see what you think. But I think if you're not going to go and get a full-time, whether corporate or not, then I think this, taking this direction is going to be helpful. And of course, I'm like so resistant at first. Like, don't tell me what the fuck to do.
I'm
like,
sure. I mean, for a variety of reasons, your age, your interests, yeah.
And I was like, this is the last thing I want to do.
Yeah.
And again, it's like all these signs were pointing me to say yes and to do it. And you know what's funny? I think we were talking about with Melissa. I was talking to her about this last night. She picked up on the repetitive use of threes in my work.
She did.
Mm-hmm. And 33 has always been like an impactful number for me, but it started showing up to me around that time of life. And I would just start to see it all the time. And not just one of those, like, I'm looking at the clock on the microwave, waiting for it to say like 9:33.
Yeah.
But it would pop out to me all over.
Yeah.
But there's the moment I was getting on the bus to go to, I don't know if we were on our way to the airport or to basic training, but I clearly remember this, and I don't know why. I got on the bus. There was one overhead light on. And it was like dark. It was like early hours in the morning. and that was the only open seat on the bus for me.
Hmm.
And I just took
It's
that.
like pointing you.
Yeah, just like a sign. And there were
Huh.
so many like small little examples like that. And that sounds okay. You can make of it what you will, but at that time for me, I was like, okay,
Yeah, getting little signals, little like nods from the universe that you're on the
yes,
right path.
yes,
And so you go into the Air Force, and I thought this part of your background was super fascinating because I actually see this in your work. You studied Morse code.
did. Yeah, I spent 6 months learning Morse code. It was all under the umbrella of like signals intelligence is what my career was.
Mhm.
Yeah, and then I learned more about like signals over the air, classified shit. But
Yeah, stuff you can't,
it's
stuff you
nothing
can't,
sexy.
stuff you'll have to murder me if you tell me.
But the Morse code was such a shock, and I think they still teach it today. And I'm like, how do you have this antiquated language? But I'm sure it's effective, and obviously, like I can remember my grandfather, rest in peace, talked about when he was in World War II. He did on the airfields. It was like light Morse code, so they would send signals with light with like flashlights.
Yeah.
But and I can pick it up now. I can't decipher it anymore. I couldn't tell you what their encoded messages is, but you're right. I've always loved writing. Like an expression for me is in my quiet time or in spare time. And through a lot of that basic training through my military, like I have journals of just
Ooh, that's
so
interesting.
cathartic. I mean, really soppy, like sappy, like
Yeah.
it was heavy, angsty, but it carried me through. It was like a friend to me that I really, really needed.
So, okay, so I want to hear about this experience because how did this experience shape you? If it was so, emotional.
It was hard,
Yeah.
really challenging, really like you talk about maybe this taps into that too, that I felt really lonely
Mm.
there. And I didn't know how I could use that for a power to be alone. And so I think it was training me, it was teaching me more than anything. And there's this sense of integrity that the military really drills in you.
Mhm.
But it's really rung true in my current life is that what are you going to do when no one's watching you?
Mm.
What are you going to make? What do you have to say? And how are you going to act?
Mm.
Not just towards others, but towards yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was really hard on myself young.
What were you hard on yourself about?
Perfection.
Mm. That'll kill the art real fast.
Yeah.
Well,
Wanting things to be perfect, wanting myself to be perfect, expecting perfection.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What's the emotion behind that? Because that's a big one.
It is a big one. Almost that it's like a sense of wasted time and energy now, you know? I wish I could go back, and I have done a lot of like inner child work, thankfully, knowing that now to be able to go back and heal those parts. And because they're still with us. I think we carry all of us
For sure.
from childhood into adulthood. That it's okay that just take the grip off. Like you can't control this. There isn't perfect. And just relax.
Yeah.
Relax into it.
Yeah.
Don't worry about what others are thinking because they're most of the time not thinking about you anyways.
So true. No one gives a damn.
No one gives a fuck.
They're worried about themselves. They're stuck in their own head.
Yeah.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Perfection is probably, I talk a lot about shame and eradicating shame because I feel like that is just such a diabolical emotion and it's so worthless. And it holds us back. But perfectionism is probably the next hill for me to climb. I mean, you witnessed it when we were setting this up, and I've got that in me. And so, and I think this podcast might be an exercise in letting go of that for sure. But yeah, I can definitely relate to wasted time and energy on that. Yeah. And it served you, it protected you from something.
Mm-hmm. So in that sense, I can't say that any time is wasted.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you exit the military
Mm-hmm.
and you don't become an artist straight away, do you? What do you do right out of the military?
No, I come home. We moved back to Texas. I got a job at the photo department at Walgreens for 1 week, and I traded up that job for the amazing position at Half Price Books. And
And your dad's like, great.
oh yeah, no. I don't know what he thought at that time, honestly. Amanda at that time, this is where I guess it gets tricky. I don't know, using names or whatnot, but my ex, when we were newly married, she had ended up getting into a job almost right. That's funny. We bought a car, and from the dealership, she met this woman, had this contact, and she got a job first and loved it. It was like a cooking school for kids. And she was super excited about it. And I was just kind of like, I don't know, I was like testing the waters. But the reason I bring up Half Price Books and why it's so impactful and the journey was because before military, and probably from watching that movie Empire Records, if you remember.
I love that movie. Yeah.
I always romanticized this notion of working in a record store or a bookshop, and just like that cool kid, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Alternative life, like you're into things that no one else really are, just kind of like wanting to personify like this, I don't know, this imagination or just have this experience. And so I worked there for a month, and in the short time that I worked there was one night that we always had to stay late, and like you had to line all the books up after everyone left. And it was just a revelation for me because I'm like, hold on, I just left, full-time benefits, not a great salary, but they paid for everything.
Yeah.
And I'm getting how much an hour now? And it really struck me. I was like, this can't be it. I won't allow this to be the next phase.
I won't allow this. That is a super powerful statement.
It wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
I was stubborn and I mean, I think I have that stubborn quality that's also required to do this. But I just wouldn't give up on myself. And I'm like, okay, I'm seeing where I'm coming from. And now this feels like almost like a giant leap backwards. Thankfully, I had a friend. She had a resume and kind of fudged my info, kind of blended worlds a little bit on this piece of paper, and she floated it out with the headhunter that she knew, and I got a job doing web design. And
the very thing you questioned before you went to the military. That's funny.
Exactly. And what's even more comical is that I enrolled in like night school, and so I was taking like a web design 101 class at night. I don't know how they didn't see through the bullshit, but they hired me. So I got this job like 2 months out. I was so excited. And I'm going to school at night. I come into the office the next day, and I'm literally just like on the job training, learning taking what I'm learning at night and then coming in and implementing it the next day.
Damn.
And just evolving and growing very rapidly, very quickly. And it was fun. It was a small enough company that I wasn't just thrown into it and like completely overwhelmed, but I definitely had that, what is that?
Imposter
Thank
syndrome.
You. That's where I was. Yes. I was like, what is it?
Telepathically, I could tell what you were saying. Yeah.
Exactly. But again, I had an amazing like creative director, and they were very supportive of me and gave me plenty of opportunity to kind of, as much as I could, like they were a little IT company, and they had some clients on the side that we would do like custom websites for. Being in the middle of that job though, I signed up for Twitter like year one, I think, that they started. And this really began this whole new life of like the power of social media, especially in the beginning. And it was so different then.
Yeah, and that was early.
Yeah. Early adopter to that, early adopter to Instagram. And I just began to like do what I love to do and connect with people. And I remember within that first probably year of being on Twitter, I'd found a group out in California, in Southern California, that I really connected with. They ended up at one point like hiring me to do some like illustration work, and I got to fly out and meet them.
Wow.
So I was really like interested and wowed by the power to connect with people outside of your immediate sphere.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved that. And then I think I fell into this like with Instagram, where I got picked up like really early on, and it just did a total number on me. Inflated my ego.
Oh.
Getting on the explore page and like watching what is so not important, but the numbers, the followers, like all of that shit, just
Yeah.
I didn't know how to handle it. And I can't even imagine what it must be like at a nth degree with a celebrity or you know, a musician who just has this overnight success, because I just had like a very small fraction
Mm-hmm.
of that, but I thought I was so important,
Mm.
and I acted that way. And I've had to do a lot of reckoning around that with my own sense of self and my own image, and how, what do I think people think about me? And I'm kind of like jumping through that. There's a lot to
Unpack.
unpack there, but I will say that like through it all, I think I was reflecting on this recently on something I shared, that like Instagram, faults and all, like it is still a powerful connection tool.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's how we connected.
It is.
I DM'd you.
Absolutely.
And here you are spending the
Yes.
night at my
Yeah.
house. It's crazy. You know, so it's true, Kyle. Like, I talk a lot about having been a tech executive during the connected era, the so-called connected era, and watching the disconnect that occurred as a result. And I'm the first to criticize technology and our screens. But it is true that there's another, where there's dark, there's light. There's another part of this that is extremely connecting. Like, I received a DM from my aunt in Uruguay that's in her late 90s.
Wow.
2 days ago.
Yeah.
And she sent me a song.
Oh.
Right? And so I'm like, that there's something that is very connective about it. That's very powerful. Okay, so you're touching on a period of time, and I don't know where to take this, because you're touching on two things that I want to explore. So I'll let you lead us. Okay. But you're touching on this notion of, I don't know if we want to call it sudden celebrity, but like a spike, and suddenly, you know, a significant portion of your world expands, and people know who you are, and they know your work, and it kind of gets to your head a little bit. A lot of it. Yeah. Okay, so I want to hear about that. And was this from a timing perspective also? Was this in your 30s? Was this also when you were simultaneously starting to like rail against God and your understanding of God and religion? This
happened right before that whole, because I think the dismantling coincided with the disconnect from seeing the ugly side of, you know, and that's of course when they decided to bring in the algorithm and change the whole, like, you know, it just used to be that beautiful chronological feed that we all love and miss.
I miss the organic nature of it.
It's all dead. It's gone.
Bummer.
This was probably late 20s. And I'll share this part of it because it feels right. And right now, I had gone one of my first times to go to South by. So what happened to me when I started this web design thing is I was like, oh, great. I was into like pixel perfect everything. I was designing in Photoshop, and then that just kind of waned on me. I was like, I still don't feel connected to me. And then I was also trying to like build my own website and have my own little side brand, because, you know, as people were paying me to like do illustrations, and I was like, this is important. I should have my own separate thing going on the side, a side hustle. I would just labor nights and weekends with my own little, like, I think I was on WordPress at the time, website.
Shout out, Matt.
Yeah.
Matt Mullenweg is the founder of WordPress.
Absolutely. Yes. And then something happened in my brain, because I got back into my sketchbooks, and I was like, wait a second, I can scan my sketchbooks, recreate them in Illustrator, create separate images, and then my website can look handmade. And it would definitely have
Kyle, that is so cool.
So that's what I ended up doing. The first time I came to South by, a speaker, unbeknownst to me, had screenshotted my website and featured it in her talk that was like examples of cool type on the web, or like original type. I can't even remember the name of the title.
Do you remember the speaker? Because if I know who it is, I'm going to flip out.
Oh, I'd have to find her name.
Okay. We're going to do this because I have this weird intuition that I think I know who it is.
Do you want to say?
If it's Tiffany Schlain, it's going to blow my mind.
No.
She's the founder of the Webbies.
Okay. I don't think so.
Okay. All right. Keep going.
Okay.
Okay. Because if it was her, I was going to be like, mind blown. Okay. Keep going.
And I had no idea. And I'm in South by in downtown Austin. This is like 2014, 2013, 2012. Mm-hmm. And somebody's texting me from being in her talk, and they're like, dude, your website is like featured like in this room, and there's like hundreds of people.
Wow.
And I'm just like, holy shit. Yeah. So that was kind of like the beginning, and that was coinciding with this whole thing with Instagram that was happening. And that was a whole other outlet because I love photography. But again, I was just like using it as another way to like get more attention.
Yeah.
You know, I think this is
Oh, what?
Oh, I'm making this new connection.
I see this. What is it?
This need to be seen, feeling like an outsider, feeling like I didn't belong. And then all of a sudden you give somebody like that a platform, a space to be seen and be noticed. I mean, how could it not just be like binging, eating it all up?
Yeah.
But for what purposes? And that I ran with that, like allowing that to be so definitive.
Yeah. Whew.
Yeah.
I'm struggling with something because there's two sides to this coin. On one hand, there's the hungry ghost, which I'm sure you're aware of, the hungry ghost in Buddhism.
No, tell me.
So I've talked about it before on this podcast. The hungry ghost in Buddhism is a ghost that it looks, the physical image looks like an emaciated body or skeleton, like a ghoul almost. It's super, super thin. And it's like, it's ravenous. And the more you feed it, the thinner it gets. And so it's in Buddhism, it's kind of like your ego, like feeding the ego, or the need for validation.
Yes.
And it's like, the more you need it, the hungrier it gets, and the less you're never going to be satiated. It makes it worse.
That's right.
So there's one side of it that is that, but then there's another side of it where I'm like, yes, Kyle, I want you to be seen. Like, you deserve to be seen. And, you know, it sounds like you were a plant that needed to be watered, you know, and you were getting watered for the first time. And so I also see the good in that.
Yeah. And I just wish I would have had some kind of like, I don't know that it was even possible. I'm thinking about it now. Like, what would it have looked like to have some kind of mentor, or have somebody that's alongside of you, that's just like in your corner, that's supportive, that's saying, yes, this is good. But also like, let's fine tune some things. Like, let's tweak some things along the way. Like, don't let this go to your head. Like, maybe stay focused over here.
Yeah.
Things like that. And I mean, if I have regrets from that time at all, I think it's this is a big word, but it's almost like that being, I don't want to say it, exploiting my family in a way that I don't know was really healthy. Sharing nonstop about my family, my girls, just this real intimate look.
Yeah.
Because I knew how it would respond, or I knew what kind of response it would get.
Yeah.
And fast forward now, like, I made the decision within the last year or two I don't share pictures of my girls publicly anymore.
Yeah.
And it's still out there. I mean, I guess I could do the deep dive and really go through and like scrub that, but it's in a database anyways, somewhere.
Yeah.
On a server somewhere forever.
Yeah.
But like that, I mean, I do feel like I really tried to stay present and live in the moment, and a part of it too, if I'm honest, like, it was beautiful.
Yeah, you documented their lives, I bet.
Yeah, and that part, I love to have those memories. So I can't shit on it wholly, but I will say that, like, I wish I had a little bit of restraint in some aspects.
It sounds like it's the intent that you're questioning.
Yeah.
A little bit.
For sure, it's all intent.
Which is where the growth comes.
Yes.
So what was the moment of reckoning for you then? So what shifted? What made you realize, okay, wait a minute, I don't want to be doing this?
I think it was a number of factors, and some that were even outside of my control. I think the whole change with Instagram at the time before they became owned by Meta was, they changed the algorithm, they changed the feed, so the business decision, excuse me, the business decisions they were making were affecting all the users, and this organic kind of sense of growth and connection, more towards advertisement and stuff. Um, but that had real consequences. Like, I started to see the numbers falling off, and like the engagement was down, and so I was taking it personally, which had nothing to do with me personally, but
Yeah.
it also forced me into questioning my intent.
Yeah.
And I'm like, everything has always been, I'll get to it and I'll just start bumping up against something because I'm like, wait a second, hello, painting,
Yeah.
drawing, making things with your hands. Can we please get back to
Knock,
that? It's
knock.
like, yeah, it's like just gently reminding me, get back on, go back to your first love.
Yeah.
What have you always loved?
Yeah.
What makes you feel the best when you're doing it?
Yeah. And
And that again is like, okay, I'll come back to that.
yeah. So what was that moment? When did you actually decide, okay, I'm going to get back to being an artist?
2014. So that all that South by had to be probably 2012 or so. 2014 was the year I did my first, like, what I consider my first mural. I had done a couple small things, but this was like commissioned. It was huge. It's still up actually in Dallas. It was on this big wall along this trail. And I saw that as such like a monumental achievement at that time. I mean, it's the biggest thing I'd ever painted. It took so much effort. It was the middle of summer. I was sweating, just like baking in the sun all day painting. And at the end of it, I felt so alive. I felt so connected. I felt so energized, and like it just felt true to me to be doing this. And that's continued. But from doing the public work, it drew me back into the studio, to uncovering my own sense of voice, of expression. I really try and stay away from the just identifying a style, more or less. I don't really think that's important, but I think listening, paying attention to what do I have to say and how do I want to say that feels uniquely me. And I think that's when that started to happen in 2014.
Yeah.
When I got that. And then, and that snowball effect with commercial work and mural work was still fantastic. And it's now kind of, I'm in this weird, I'm now in another season, thankfully though, where I'm seeing fine art. And this is the thing, this is such the long game for me, that I've never wanted to apply pressure, and I've never wanted to put my foot on the gas all the way to make it happen. And so I've allowed it to kind of, I don't know that's like taking the back seat is the right analogy, but I've kind of like slowly wanted to cultivate it and nurture it on my own terms.
Like an unfolding.
Yeah. While I have this other thing that's equally as creative and expressive, but that was always like, that was what was putting food on the table, and the more of the financial security, I guess. Whereas like this thing that I'm in my weird little studio, like making up my own little world, like that's so special to me. Into a season now, and in this last year or two, where that's really begun to like open up new doors and take on a new level, is overwhelmingly like amazing.
Yeah. I mean, you're blossoming into the thing that your 5-year-old self saw. You can't deny it.
No.
It's official.
Yeah, you heard it here.
Yeah.
And I feel that way, and I'm so happy like to hear you say it and to see it. Because I see it, and I feel more connected and more affirmed in my work and more confident in what I'm creating. which hasn't come easy. And that's the one thing I would stress more than anything is like, don't expect to, if you're wanting to start out doing this, or if you feel like it's too late to start doing this, like you just have to start. Like that's the whole thing. You have to drag yourself to it when you don't want to. You have to love it when you find yourself in the middle of it and you are having an emotional experience with it, or the full range of emotion you have to welcome and expect. But if you don't start, if you just don't begin, you talk about writer's block, or you talk about the blank page syndrome, or blank canvas, what have you, like whatever that thing is staring back at you with every potential full of it in the world because it's nothing yet. That's the most amazing place to be.
Yeah.
But you will never know about yourself or about your work until you're ready to give yourself to it and make mistakes and just fuck it up and then keep going into it.
Yeah.
Because
and stop denying yourself.
Yeah.
Stop denying yourself.
Because waiting for it to happen is denying yourself that it will ever happen.
Yeah. You know, when I was starting this podcast and I was like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
Yeah.
A dear friend of mine said to me, and I'm going to get the quote wrong, but it was a Martin Luther King quote that he basically just said, he reminded me of this quote, which was like, you don't have to see the staircase or the stairwell to take the first step. And it's so true. Like just take the first damn step. Yeah. And it feels so good when you do. Yeah. When you break the seal.
Yes.
Even if you don't know where it's going to take you.
I never know where it's going to take me. And I think that's such
None
the
of
beauty.
Us know.
No.
None of us know.
No.
Okay. So the other thing I want to get back to is your spiritual journey, if that's okay. And this was a realization I made when I visited your studio. And I started, and I know you're not attached to the titles of your work, but you can't deny that there is a spiritual component when you start to read the titles of your work. You're like, okay, something is going on here. And so I started to kind of probe when I was with you in your studio, and I was like, okay, now I'm understanding why Kyle has come into my life. Yeah. This makes total sense. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about, let's go back to the 30s, your 30s, when you started to kind of rail against, I don't know if it's religion. Yeah.
Sure.
What was going on there? And it sounds like it coincided with a personal reckoning.
Yes.
Tell me what was going on.
I was so bored with the same old kind of cookie cutter version of, I mean, I had railed against, like corporate church for probably 10 or so years before that. Mm-hmm. I didn't feel connected to it. It didn't feel as honest to me, I guess. And what I was starting to experience with beginning meditation and finding like out about an inner world that I kind of always knew, but just no one ever taught it to me, what to do with it. And I was like, why am I like so adherent to all this stuff that I was handed that just feels so old and like not really serving me well? And I think it's like I listened to a lot of what's his name? Eastern philosopher, Zen Buddhist. His name's right on the tip of my tongue. Well, there's Ram Dass that I listen to a lot of.
Thich Nhat Hanh.
I love him also. He was a white guy, but he was like teaching in the 60s. It'll come to me in a second. But these were like, holy shit, like seeing, once I really began to grasp like the both andness of life, that there's two sides always, talk about light and dark, talk about good and bad, like we're always holding that tension and we're in the middle of it. And it's not binary. And I think that was like getting away from the binary systems that I was raised in, that I grew up in. And I felt really comfortable being in this third kind of way. My whole life I felt that way. So I'm like, oh, of course, this feels natural. But I was just like, fuck it all. Like, I'm done. Like, it's not like I needed to make this public renouncement or anything, but inside I knew like I can't go back to this old way. Like this just feels stale to me and kind of lifeless. I had my first mushroom journey in, I think it was actually 2020. It was December. I had rented a cabin by myself in hill country, and I had been like kind of microdosing for about a year prior, but really heavy into meditating before that. I was doing like Wim Hof breath work, really getting into my body. I think that was denied. I denied myself like knowing myself and my body for so long. So it was like these practices were coming online, and I was like really getting activated and like, oh my God. And through yoga too. I think yoga was another channel for me to like be open. And but after that first, I was so nervous to drink that cup of tea. Again, to talk about the not knowing.
Yeah.
And on the other side of it, I can remember just laughing and telling myself, I was like, what did you have to be afraid of? Having such a powerful encounter with the divine, with love, the interconnection between nature and man, and kind of all of us, all things being connected. It's such a common theme. Like anyone who's experienced this will know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But for me,
myself
it was,
included.
Absolutely. And that's just one of these, and I still carry that with me because that's the power of that medicine is it leaves this like lasting trailing of just, it's not an effect. It is really a change.
Yeah.
And I would say the two things that have impacted me most and like art making have been psychedelics and have been having children. Honestly, having children really opened my world up to color, to the wild abandon of just starting somewhere and not knowing where it's going to end up. But just all that time I spent with them drawing and just being so awed at their sense of abandonment to it. They don't know the rules. They don't know what it's like to feel afraid to start creating something. They just go into it.
Yeah. You're making me think of two things. One is that having children for me was the first exercise in relinquishing control.
Oh, yeah.
Like we didn't find out the genders of our babies, which made everybody crazy. But I was like,
same
that is
for my oldest.
Really?
We did the same, and then did for the second one just to know, do we need new clothes or do we keep the
more
old
practical
clothes?
yeah more practical. No, we drove everybody nuts on the second one. I was like, if it's a she, she'll wear blue. But yeah, it was it was actually a gesture on my part that I wasn't going to be a controlling parent and that I was going to relinquish control to this process. But the second part that you're making me realize is during our travels in Bhutan and India, they taught us that our children are our teachers.
Yes, they are.
And they're gifts to us. They don't actually belong to us. We don't own them.
That's right.
But they're our teachers. And it sounds like that your girls were very much that for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you kind of got the same message. I don't know where I picked that up from. I can't remember who said that, but that was something that I think still try to be very cognizant, mindful of. They are gifts. And I think about this with anyone. It's like the things that we see in others that we don't like are just the reflections in our own selves that we're either unwilling to deal with or look at, but it truly is us because we're seeing us in another.
Yeah.
And our kids more than anyone else because they are just like in our DNA.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's really true. And I don't want it to sound so like new agey or hippie with I made the statement about the two things that have influenced me most. There are obviously like more. I think the heart opening experience of my experience with mushrooms specifically, because that's really the only psychedelic that, and it's a medicine. That's what that's kind of like, if I'm forced to label something, I'm going to put it in that box of like medicine.
I agree.
Plant medicine. But the true like seeing and feeling the connectedness of all things, I think only strengthened from that, or maybe even made me a true believer of that.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I'm seeing in my work, or attempting to give a nod to, but I just think it comes through in some other way, like naturally as a byproduct.
I definitely felt it in your work,
Mm.
1,000%.
Yeah.
And again, in the titles, like couldn't deny it.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, there's something deeply spiritual going on here with this man.
Yeah. And I think I'm often of the mindset that like I think I can get a lot more across writing. And I often think how funny it is, the connection, the mind like hand connection I have versus like this has been a practiced thing for me for a while to be open and to speak. Because I'm always like worried, am I going to say the right thing? Do I have the right words? Am I smart enough? You know, am I
Really?
Yeah, I'm like that's what I'm thinking before I walk in here.
No way.
Oh yeah.
That's fascinating.
100%.
And I find you to be like so articulate and so like deeply thoughtful and wise. And I would have never guessed that.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
We all have that inner critic.
We sure do.
Damn.
How do we make friends with them?
Right. Right. Just trying to protect you from something.
I don't know what.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about your girls and your parenting style. We have not talked about this.
No.
So what's been your approach to parenting them versus how you were talking about as a child of divorce, you felt kind of bounced around emotionally?
Yeah. The biggest lesson that I've learned and that I try and stay consistent in is giving them space to feel how they need to feel, not shaming them for a feeling, not telling them to get over it or you're being too much of this or that. I don't want to attach a sense of identity to how they feel. And also, if I make a mistake, humbling myself and to go back to them and to apologize, to have that conversation with them, to model for them a sense of forgiveness, a sense of humility, a sense of empathy. I mean, I don't know, I think kids are innately empathetic. You know, they almost have to learn how not to be in a way.
Yeah, we train it out of them.
Yeah. Just like creativity. They're all so innately, wonderfully, beautifully, like right out of the box, they are ready to make and create. And the presence with them, just to be with them, even if it's things that I don't really seem or feel are important, or I think, oh, my time may be better. But it's like sometimes it's just to slow down and to just be with them. I find the most tender moments for me are like I'll take 5 minutes with my little one and like we'll do like a little puzzle or she'll want to bake something together. And I mean, you know this, but it's like her words are just like cut straight to the heart. Like, I'm so glad we did this, or like, I love you. And it's all those touches that are just it's so meaningful. And that is how I want to stay consistent through, I mean, we're on the precipice of puberty with my oldest now. She'll be 12 at the end of the year. But I'm just so thankful to have like such a new, different relationship. And that hasn't been easy either. Like feeling like I'm wandering around in the dark, like not a roadmap in sight. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing.
No, and they're all individuals. So it's not like I can give you advice.
There's exactly.
Yeah.
Even from oldest to second, it's like you have to throw the whole playbook out.
Totally. Yeah. I will give you this piece of advice that my longtime assistant, Renee, who I love and adore, she's part of our family. As my kids were becoming teenagers, she said something to me, which was actually on the heels of her losing her own daughter to breast cancer. So it was extremely profound. But she said to me, just remember to have a sense of humor. Remember not to take it personally. And remember to make sure that they know that you love them. And so during the teen years, I can't think of better advice. And so she just, that for me, I always bring myself back. And to your point around those little moments, like yesterday, my daughter gave me a card that I'm like still ruminating on it. I'm still luxuriating in. It was so beautifully written and so powerful. Like I'm getting emotional thinking about it, and she's about to be 18, and
she's giving you now that gift of what you had gave her for so many years.
I just can't believe it. And then my son called me not once but twice yesterday
Mm.
from Paris on spring break, you know, and once was a FaceTime. And on the first phone call, he was like, I've been waiting all day to call you. I've been waiting for you to wake up, you know. And on the second one, he and all his buddies sing me happy birthday. And I'm just like, oh.
That is so sweet.
I mean,
that's amazing.
It's amazing
to be in a whole other part of the world with your friends and to put you top of mind on your birthday and to just be so excited. I love that.
Yeah. I mean, it just makes me grateful to be alive and get to experience them. You know, it just is, it's such a gift.
Yeah. I think that is so true, though. The last point you were saying that she shared with you about letting them know they're loved. Like, there are ways that we show them they're loved, but our words are so powerful and so meaningful. And I think that's something I have not wanted to take for granted, is the actual verbalization of saying I love you, especially in moments where they're upset or they don't want to hear it. The reinforcement of that, even amidst a tumultuous sort of like stormy feeling that they're experiencing, because it's gonna pass, and they have to learn how those storms will come and pass, but they have to know. I want them to know I'm a rock for them. I am
no matter
this
what.
Steady. I heard somebody lay it out like this once early on, when maybe even before kids or when my girls were little. It's like parents are almost like this table, like this strong, sturdy table, and you allow your kids to just lay all their shit out on the table and sort through it. But you're there, like you're supporting them.
Yeah.
But you know, it's not that I was not told I was loved, but it's like I just want them to know more.
Yeah. Even
I
more.
want them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I want them to know when they eventually decide if they, you know, an adult, if they're going to marry or whatever happens, like I want that to be such a, I want them to know, I guess, more than anything, that they love themselves and they know themselves and they have that self-confidence. But that if they're picking when they choose a mate, a partner, what have you, that they're going to find someone who respects that and gives that to them.
Yeah.
And they're not going to settle for that, for less than that.
Well, so I one time heard a parenting expert say, keep talking to your kids, even when you think they're not listening, they are. But more than that, they're watching. And so you're modeling for them. And I would say you are absolutely modeling for them. You're modeling, well, you're in love.
Yeah.
I mean, so you're modeling that. You're modeling a healthy relationship with their mom, and not binary. You're in love.
Yes.
And then you're also modeling for them living your most authentic life, not denying your inner artist, right? What a gift to model that for them.
I think I've talked about that more than anything when it comes around to my girls, like what a gift it is to show them a life that is such that you aren't required there's not a specific tailor-made path for you, like, or not tailor-made, there's not a playbook, there's not a formula to life, and you don't have to follow these steps. That is a great honor and gift to give them. And you're right, being in love is incredible, and Connell and I are just so lucky to have found each other at you know, this stage in life. We're really excited about our 40s.
40s are hot, dude. Let me tell you, I just left them. They're amazing. You're in for a good time, especially with Connell. She's gorgeous.
She is beautiful. Thank you.
In all the ways.
Thank you. Yes. So we just feel so lucky and so excited on this like new phase of life together, and blending families it's going to have its own challenges and stuff, but you know, I'll share this, but we were sitting together, and this is the day we were signing on our new home. I was like, look, I've experienced a full range of emotions this last month, and fear and worry and just everything natural to feel for such a huge decision. But I was like, the one thing I come back to that gives me great peace is like, I love you and I trust this process in us. And I'm like, that makes me so excited that to walk through this together.
Yeah.
You know, and But it's so important. It's so real to have someone who also is giving you that same level of love, respect, trust, and then there's this openness between you two. I don't know that it works any other way.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's really cool to behold and be around you guys because you can see you guys holding each other in it. You know, I could totally see how you could express that vulnerably to her, like, hey, I'm afraid, and have her hold you in it and not judge you for it or not feel insecure in it, right? And maybe even say that she is too. You know, it just, you can see in y'all's relationship, there's that, I don't know.
Well, that's,
You can
I
see it.
love to hear that.
You can observe.
We feel that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah. Even in your body language, y'all hold each other. You know, it's fascinating to watch. Okay. So have we left anything unsaid?
Oh my God, I don't know what it would be.
I mean, you have a lot to contribute, but what's your hope or wish from here? What's next, Kyle?
What's next? That's such a great question.
Whether it's for the world, whether it's for your work, what do you wish for?
I wish that we all have a little more space to enjoy the silence, to turn the noise off. It's a practice I've been implementing in my own studio. I love music.
Me too.
I'm affected by music. I love to be silly when I'm by myself and I dance with music.
We haven't talked about this. I have dance parties for one.
Yes.
That's
absolutely.
Awesome.
It is ridiculous and I love it. And I feel like, again, it's a way of getting in the body. And I'm just making myself laugh. And that is just that's so fun. Point being, I have a door in my studio. It's just a room, but it opens up to the back. And now that the weather's turning a little nicer and trending warmer, which I love, I can be in there and have the door open. And not only is it solitude, but it's silence. And it's like it feels even more now that it has to be practiced. Just because again, I go back to how easy it is to be distracted and be consumed with the overwhelming amount of noise, fear, and uncertainty. And so how do we cultivate a sense of like belonging and certainty and trust? And it's like we have to give that to ourselves, and I think meditation is one of the greatest gifts that I've learned and continue to learn. There's no achieving meditation.
Yeah, no.
There's no goal you can't win at it. That's what I hope for myself, for my kids, for us all, because while it is important to stay active and stay engaged and stay in the know, it's like we have to balance that out. We can't be fully turned on. Like, I'm not even going to say the news channel, but it's like we can't. That is going to ruin us, and I think it is, and I think it's showing what the effects are if we allow that to run rampant and don't know how to rein it in, especially at a personal level.
Yeah. You know? And to give ourselves that space. I know I really value silence and have done silent retreats. Give ourselves the space and time to actually listen to ourselves, listen to that inner voice that's going to guide you.
And not be afraid of it.
Yeah. Oh God, that's the big one, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm scared as hell of it.
Same.
Because it says the craziest shit to me.
Yeah. Same.
Yeah.
But it's also like part of the human experience. And I feel like if we're not careful, we're trending towards becoming so disconnected from our humanity. And that's why I love to paint, because it connects me to being human, and it offers me a chance to show the world my human experience.
Yeah. And it connects others.
Yeah.
I mean, we've already seen the intersections of our lives and the lives of people that we love through your work.
Exactly.
And just watching people connect to you at your show at Commerce Gallery and seeing how people were responding to you and the work is really beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, Kyle, I want to say that I don't know that I knew where this podcast was going to go, but I had a feeling, and you have brought us such a beautiful lesson in terms of really enabling and setting free your most authentic self, not denying who you really are, trusting it, living the life that you're intended to live, not the life that you think everybody thinks you should live.
Yeah.
And I think
Thank you.
what's also wild is I see so much ambition in you.
Mm.
And I say that as the highest compliment.
Mm.
And it is the ambition to set your work free. It is the ambition to really become a true artist. For you, it's not about the money, and that will come, you know, and also the ambition to be successful.
Yeah.
You know, I see so much ambition in you in a really, really beautiful way.
Mm.
So it's fascinating that your dad like gave you the ultimatum, because I'm like, sitting before me is probably one of the most ambitious people I've ever seen. Like big thinker, big, bold in his actions.
And to give my dad credit, I don't, in this last few years, it's been beautiful to our relationship. It's gone through many different phases and seasons, but I remember when he told me, I can't remember what show or after what show it was, but he saw it.
He saw it.
He saw it. And he was like, I'm proud of you,
Oh.
That kind of seems like the cliche, like, oh, there's a wound and now you need this, you need these words. And it's like, yes, I needed it and it was well received. And also I was already moving in such a way that I was affirmed in myself.
Yeah.
I had cultivated that I was like, it didn't like, oh my God, like finally I've made it. This is all I've needed. No, like
you're self-actualized.
Exactly. And so while it's amazing and I love it and I'm so happy that, because he's like, I don't know, what the fuck are you making? Like, I don't understand that. He doesn't get art. Like he doesn't.
He's like, people paid what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's like, and that's the thing too. Like my story's like, I didn't grow up with artists. I wasn't raised around art. I think the closest thing I got was my uncle. Like he had drawings in my grandparents' house that he made, in his younger days. But it's like, that just really wasn't part of like my peripheral experience growing up, but it was always in me. I
couldn't deny it.
I won't. So, but you're right to see. That's so funny. The juxtaposition of having this ultimatum, 20 years ago, and to now being very, very ambitious. Yeah.
Yeah. And so my wish for you and for everyone that's listening is to unleash their full selves. Okay. Like fully unleash it. I want to see all of it. Okay. All of the parts.
All right.
Kyle, I look forward to continuing our friendship.
Same. Thank you, Carla.
I've so enjoyed getting to know you and Connell.
Yes.
And consider you part of our lives.
Thank you. It's been a joy.
Thanks for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank y'all for listening today. If you're so inclined, please follow, subscribe, download, share, all of the things so that we can keep going. We appreciate your support so much. If you're interested in learning more, go to thecoeffect.co.